Applying for a business job is difficult, and you often have to go through several different steps in order to make it to the job offer. To get the job, you need to be prepared for what is coming for you in order to increase your chances. There's a lot of information out there on what kind of questions you're asked during an interview, but are you really prepared by only being able to respond to questions? A regular competence interview is a common part of the interview process for sure, but it's definitely not the only type of interview you will come across, especially when applying for a business job in management consulting, investment banking, trainee positions, or any other business positions. My name is Emelie Lindström, and I'm a management consultant. Before I got into management consulting, I worked at an executive search bureau, so I've been at both sides, being both the interviewer and the interviewee. I will teach you about some common interview types that you might encounter during your job search, and how to think and act at that type of interview. After you've sent in your CV and cover letter, there's usually some type of first screening. In a lot of cases, the recruiters have a requirement specification that they compare you to see if you tick all the boxes in the skills and demands they are looking for. Something you often get in touch with before any interview are digital tests. This includes logic tests to assess your problem-solving capabilities, math tests, language tests, and so on. These tests usually have a lower limit that you have to be above in order to make it to the next step. Often these websites or test sites gives you the opportunity to practice the tests in advance. Please do that, because that will significantly increase your chances on doing a good job during the tests. Another thing that is common are personality tests. From my knowledge, the personality tests are most often used to understand you as a person, but if they are working from a strict requirement specification, they could use it to assess if you fit the position or not. For example, if it is a position that heavily requires you to be detail-oriented and not do any errors, they're probably not going to take you any further in the interview process if you are a messy person who thinks quantity over quality. Although, make sure to do the personality tests as honestly as you can, because they probably won't see the answer on a question level. And also, if you tweak your answers to what you think they want to see, they will probably have expectations on you that you can't live up to, and that will be bad for both parties. And the role will probably not suit you good anyways. Something that is getting increasingly more common in the interview processes is that before the actual interview, you get to send in a video of yourself either answering questions or talking about yourself. This is often a part of the screening for the interviewer to get an understanding of you as a person without actually spending the time talking to you. If you seem like a nice person and fit the qualifications they're looking for, you'll probably get invited to the next step. This is actually also a way to see how comfortable you are with uncomfortable situations, because sitting and talking in front of a camera is not something that a lot of people are used to. So just make sure to smile and be yourself, and then everything will go great. Regular structured interviews are based on formal questions that they ask all the candidates. This is common as a first or second screening when they have a lot of applicants, and is most usually done by HR. This is usually about getting a first impression of you to see if you fit the position or not. So basically it's about to get to know if do you fit the company's culture and do you have the knowledge, experience and qualifications for the position. Most of these interviews are done through phone and video, but not all of them. If you have a phone interview, make sure to do it in the same setting as you would with a video interview, for example, because that makes you appear more professional. And also make sure to smile into the phone, because it makes a huge difference on your tone of voice. If you get a call at a bad time, like maybe in the grocery store or at your current job, make sure to take that call another time where you're in a better setting without background distractions. The recruiter won't expect you to be accessible at all times, so it's better to just say, okay, sorry, I have an important meeting that I have to get to. Can we take this call later in the day or any other time that fits you better? Semi-structured interviews often appear when you've gotten past the initial screening. A semi-structured interview has some questions that the recruiter is supposed to ask you to give comparability between the candidates, but it's also open for follow-up questions. Sometimes they evolve around a certain topic, so like your competencies or how you fit the company's culture and values, or behavioral interviews with questions like, tell me about a time when, or have you ever been in a situation where you have failed at something and had to be held accountable? How did you solve that? And the answer to that last question is yes, you have. but tell them about how you solved it in an excellent way. Group interviews are a way for companies to be efficient when they have a lot of applicants, and also it's a way to see how the applicants act in a group, to see how they would work around their future colleagues. These interviews or tests are often done with a time limit to pressure people and see how they act around others when they are stressed. Do they get annoyed at the others? Do they start doing their own thing? Or do they take the leader role and make the whole group go forward? A winning tactic is to be active and driving the discussion, asking the others questions, but make sure not to dominate the discussions. That will not be in your favor. Okay, and we also have case interviews, and here a lot of people think about the classical management consulting case interviews a la Victor Chang. These are most common in positions when you apply to management consulting, investment banking, and any other position that require that type of experience from before, like for example strategy departments. The more traditional setup the company has, the more strict the case interviews most likely are. Case interviews are based around a business question and scenario, like company X are thinking about entering this market, should they do it? Or company Y is experiencing declining profits, what is the issue? There's a whole science about these kind of case interviews and this type of case solving, and I will go through it in my next video actually. But just for now, know that the recruiters are looking for business skills, communication skills, and problem-solving capabilities. The business problem does not usually only have one true answer, and there are many ways that you can get to that answer. Also, only solving the problem does not really suffice. You also have to be able to communicate and make the interviewer come along with you in a smooth and easy way. There are several ways that you can solve these types of problems, and I will discuss that in my later video, but for now I've left some links to you down in the description box. There are also some more untraditional case interviews, like for example role-playing that I got to do to get into my current company. One of the partners at my firm played a CEO for a company that I got to interview. Sometimes these roles that they play are very hard to communicate with or just plain negative. Not always, but it happens. What they're looking for is how you handle clients and customers in tough situations. The case I experienced was plainly about interviewing this CEO and getting information from them, but I've heard about friends and classmates that have gotten interviews where someone plays an angry colleague that they have to convince to join for a project. And then we have guesstimates, which is also kind of a case interview, and they're quite common in both management consulting recruitment and trainee recruitments. This is where they ask questions like how many airplanes are in the air right now, or how many bouquets of flowers were sold in America last year. The point with these questions is not that you should answer them like from the top of your head right now, but there's a whole method of how you go about solving these cases that builds on small steps that you make to a whole and also communicate around it. By doing this, you can actually get quite close to the real answer. I've put some links in the description on how you can nail these. Skills interviews are a way to actually test to see if you're able to handle the job. Some examples of this could be traditionally like coding, for example, or doing kind of like an art test or a music test to see how you fit the skills needed for the position. So in a business context, this would probably be more like doing market research, doing a sales pitch, or maybe coming up with a concept for a new product. Sometimes if there are interviews that last for like a day and there are a lot of other candidates on site, you can be asked to do this in front of a larger group of people, so kind of more like a panel presentation. Sometimes you're asked to take a coffee or a lunch with a recruiter, and this is not a traditional interview, so don't expect to get an offer based on it. However, they will be assessing you on everything from how you treat the waiter to how you respond to their questions. So come prepared and make sure that you've looked up the company, the industry, and the person you're talking to. This is important in all interviews, but especially here when it's easy to trick you into that it's not an interview, but it actually kind of is. I would also like to note here that if you go to traditional interview, the same thing applies here, so you're assessed on everything you do outside of the interview as well. So if you treat the receptionist like air, don't expect to get an offer. It's just that simple. I've been at interview days with other candidates and realized in hindsight that we were assessed on everything that we did. For example, we had a mingle where we talked with both the other candidates and the people working at the company, and that was assessed. You're also assessed on how you interact with the other candidates in between the interviews. So always make sure to do your best and be yourself in all situations. I hope this will help you to be more prepared in your upcoming interviews. Comment down below if you learned something new, subscribe, and keep an eye out for next week's video on how to do case solving alone. Also, go check out my video on networking in business too. That might give you some tips on how to act and how to get in touch with interesting people that might even invite you to a job interview. Have a nice day, everyone!